Welcome to When Not Yet Becomes Right Now, the podcast where we dive deep into the moments of transformation, the times when not yet shifts into right now and everything changes. I'm your host, Jen Ginty, and this podcast is all about those pivotal moments in our life journeys. You know the ones, when the hesitation fades, when we take that first step, even if it feels like a leap. It's in these moments that growth and healing begins. Each episode will explore stories of resilience, moments of clarity, and the sparks that ignite real change. From personal experiences to expert insights, we'll uncover how people navigate the complex journey we call life and come out stronger on the other side. Whether you're searching for that spark in your own life or just curious about how change unfolds for others, you're in the right place. We'll discuss the ups and downs, the breakthroughs and setbacks, and how to embrace the right now, even when it feels out of reach. Because sometimes the hardest part of the journey is realizing that the moment you've been waiting for has already arrived. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's get started. Hello and welcome to When Not Yet Becomes Right Now. I have an amazing guest today and I want to introduce her. Her name is Brooke Deanne and she is a trauma healing mentor, rapid transformational therapist, an LLP practitioner dedicated to helping women break free from cycles of abuse and trauma. Having personally overcome indoctrination, abuse, and toxic relationships, she brings deep insight and unwavering commitment to her work. As a best-selling author, speaker, and advocate against religious abuse and domestic violence, Brooke empowers survivors to rewrite their stories, heal their nervous systems, and reclaim their true selves. Through her holistic approach, she accelerates healing, guiding women toward authentic, fulfilling lives. Welcome, Brooke.
Thank you. I'm excited to have this conversation with you and get into it.
Yes, me too. So, let's get into it. What is your origin story?
Yeah, I love how you call that the origin story.
Yeah, I'm kind of a comic book geek.
Yeah, oh yeah, that kind of makes that makes a lot of sense. So it really began obviously having a difficult childhood, kind of like all of our stories do. I was raised within a cult, and this cult really had a very indoctrinated dogma kind of approach where it was like you had to act and be a certain way and you had to do things just so to kind of get redemption. And it was very fear-based. And I just remember growing up as a little girl just being like, wow, God is really angry and God is supposed to be also love, but he's also very angry and I don't know if I'm going to be saved and I might get destroyed. And that was really the teachings that they had. It was very fear-based doomsday. And I was afraid. I was afraid of doing something bad and not being able to have God's grace and in the fact that there was this promised world of where we would be perfect if we did obey. And so there was a lot of pressure really on me as a young child to perform. And my father and my mother really wanted this belief system to be instilled in me and their children because that's what they were taught. And my father wanted perfection. He wanted us to act and do just like and be the example to everyone else. And so that recreated this sense of I'm never enough. I don't know if I can ever be enough. And I really held on to that story for a long time. And that made me actually get into a relationship that was pretty much the carbon copy of what my experience of a man was with my father. And that relationship, I kept that relationship for 17 years because I didn't know any better. I didn't know any better what an abusive relationship was or what a healthy relationship was. I just knew what I'd only experienced. And so when I broke free from both of those in 2017, I left the cult, which meant that I lost my family and I lost the whole entire community. I was, very sad. It rocked my world because I left the marriage at the same time, realizing that this was toxic. I needed to leave. And that was the beginning of my healing journey. So that's a short session of really my story. It was very tumultuous. It was a lot of pain. There was a lot of sadness. There was a lot of, having to face parts of myself in this healing journey that have been really difficult. And it really led me to what I do now.
Yeah. Our backgrounds really do form us and what we truly want to be and give to this world. So I definitely understand it. With my family, it was the better to look good than to feel good. So I feel like that's like similar in your sense to always be the perfect family in front of everyone's eyes, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Look good rather than feel good. Yep. It was suppress yourself, keep going. Doesn't matter how you feel. It's about what can you show on the outside so people can present themselves a certain way. And I really learned that was where all my perfectionism came from, which I still struggle with today as an adult. If it's not done perfect, then I'll kind of procrastinate or I won't know what to do because I'm thinking that it needs to be perfect rather than just jumping in and doing it. And these beliefs from childhood, they exist in our adult world too. We just don't really always know this. We're not usually always conscious of this, but it is very much operating our lives today.
Yeah, absolutely. And religion, that's a lot to
Mhm.
unpack.
Oh,
I,
girl, yeah.
yes,
Could say that.
I have my own religious trauma that, isn't even a fraction of your own. Going to church every Sunday with my abuser, being told that I have to honor him no matter what. And again, looking like that perfect family in front of everyone. It was a lot. I was sent to Catholic school, and I think Catholic school immediately turns people into, non-Catholics in a sense. But tell me a little bit about your background with that.
With the religious trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. I've only been out for 8 years and I'm still kind of unraveling it. It is really deeply programmed if you're born into it because your parents were kind of instilling that into you from the beginning and that becomes your core belief system. So when I left and it was like I had to shatter like my entire identity and my entire belief system, I was like, whoa, where am I? I was like, what the heck do I believe? Who am I? What am I even doing here? Like there was all of those questions you kind of ask yourself when you have this spiritual awakening process. And it was very scary. And to this day, I'm still kind of unraveling some of the trauma that I endured in that religion because it really began from being sexually abused when I was a little girl. And I didn't realize that was really the root cause, but it made so much sense that I felt so deeply unsafe in my body. And there was so much shame and all of these other components that I couldn't even really heal. I was just this traumatized woman walking around trying to survive. So it's no wonder that I didn't realize I was in the toxic situations that I was in because I didn't know any better. And I think the religious programming really is when it's fear based, your body also takes all that on energetically in your nervous system. So I found myself to realize when I left, I was like, wow, I have so much anxiety. I have so much fear. I have so much self doubt, lack of self trust. I realized that, a lot of the scriptures in the Bible and what the doctrine that they taught was your heart is treacherous. You can't trust yourself. And so I was like, oh my gosh, as I unraveled that truth, I was like, oh, no wonder I doubt myself all the time. I'll feel something, but I will doubt it
Mhm.
because I was taught to think, oh, my intuition isn't shouldn't be trusted. I can't even trust myself. So how could I trust anybody else? And then I started to see how that made me feel like I couldn't trust anybody on the outside because once I had lost that society that I was a part of, I was like, well, there's no one that I can trust in this world.
Yeah.
And that is a deeply lonely place to be.
It is. And you know what? That's the complex PTSD that you get from this.
Yes.
When you're steeped in this, this fear, you are changing
Mhm.
your body chemistry and your brain neurons are changing based on that, giving you hypervigilance and all the hypers that you can imagine because you have to always be on guard.
Yes. You're always wondering, like, you're always like, oh my gosh, is God watching me? They're always, they tell you God watches you, your every move, right? Oh, is God watching me? Am I doing something bad? Am I going to get in trouble? It's always this very authoritarian God that I was taught to believe that
Mhm.
if good or bad, black or white, there is no gray area. There is really, it was they said it was love, but it was really like, well, if you don't do this, you're going to get destroyed. And how scary to think have that type of programming and that belief system where you think, oh my gosh, I could get destroyed if I don't do what I'm supposed to be doing. And that was what made me want to stay, even though I knew it wasn't true anymore, even though I had done the research and said something's not right here, this isn't adding up anymore. I still was like, well, maybe I'll just fake it because this is too scary to go into the big world of unknowns. And, but then I realized I can't. It doesn't resonate with me anymore. I can't do this.
Yeah. And you called it a spiritual awakening. Can you tell us more about
Yes.
that?
Yes. That really helped. I really started and began in 2020 when my ex-husband and the father of my children died
Oh.
Unexpectedly. When we left that religion, we both were very lost. We really didn't know who we were. And he really turned to addiction to kind of help numb his pain. And I was witnessing all of that and I'm trying to help him through his struggles. And then when he passed, I was really devastated because, we had grown up together. I had known him for a majority of my life. And then seeing my children grieve him, it was like a grief I had never experienced before. And that really helped me to awaken to, okay, what am I doing here? What happens next? What is this reality? What is the purpose here? What is the purpose of all this pain, all this suffering, all of this, everything that I have experienced thus far? Why? And I kept asking, and I kept actually just the more I asked, the more I received the answers. And I started to trust what was coming through and started to trust my intuition in the calling of, oh, this is the next thing to help me heal. Oh, this is the next understanding of where I'm supposed to go, or the next mentor that would literally just show up like magic to help me work through the thing that I was struggling with. And I started to see the beauty of the universe and the synchronicities that were kind of happening in my life. And I started to be open to the magic of it. And I was like, okay, well, this is really difficult, but there actually is some beauty and some magic to this. And that's when I started to really go deeper into the healing journey, because I realized it wasn't just throwing positivity and love and light on all my pain, which a lot of people do in this journey. In the beginning, they'll do this because nobody really wants to sit with their uncomfortability.
No.
Nobody really wants to sit with their emotions, right? It's hard. This is hard work. This is difficult. This is the real deal.
Yep.
Right. If you came here to awaken in this life, this work is tough stuff. But I have found the more that I've allowed space for it, the more perspective I get, the more understanding I get, the more love I get for myself, the more acceptance of what is, rather than trying to chase the validation or trying to chase the answer, and realizing that some of these things just don't have answers. Like being abandoned by your parents. You're never going to figure out why that had to happen. You're never going to really find the solution. It just is, and you can't change it. And when we can let go of control and just let go and come into acceptance, there's a freedom there. And I feel like I've had to do that time and time again. but it's okay. This is just the process.
Yeah. You spoke about intuition, and
Yeah.
I had a conversation with someone recently about how intuition is really difficult for someone who's been in abusive situations to really work through. Like, I did not trust my own intuition because when you have an abuser, you don't know, your intuition can't help you in that sense because you don't know how they are that day. You don't know what they're thinking that day. So any intuition you have doesn't protect you in many cases. So learning to trust intuition is just so important.
Yeah, I think it's really we shut that part of ourselves off, and we don't mean to do it. It's just that survival part of our brain, and that amygdala is just, it's kicked into high gear, and our whole entire body feels like an alarm system is constantly on. And how can you access safety when you're in that state? You can't.
No.
I had realized I had never experienced safety until I was 39 years old.
Yeah.
39 years old.
Yeah.
I had, and when I finally realized what safety even felt like, I mean, I remember tears just pouring down my face because I was like, oh my gosh, I have been in a constant state of hyper arousal my whole entire life.
Yes.
It's like I've been fighting for my life when really there was no enemy. I just thought there was an enemy because I had experienced that for so long. And it came from the religious programming. I was always told that Satan, the devil's coming to devour you, and he's going to come and, he's going to come, he's evil, and his demons they're going to trick you. They're going to trick you, and you're going to lose God's favor because you're going to fall into the trap. So I had not only this experience of believing that, oh my gosh, I got to look at every corner. Where is Satan and his demons trying to trick me? And then there's the other component of being in the abuse, being sexually abused, not being able to connect with your body, not feeling safe, and then having the abuse from in a partnership where you're always on eggshells. You're always like wondering, oh, when is the next blow up? When is the next thing going to hit the fan? And you don't realize that you've never experienced it until you actually experience what safety is.
Yeah.
What it feels like. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I sometimes feel as though I get glimpses of it with that feeling of safety. And, I've felt it throughout my life, but I don't think there would be a steady time I could basically like look at and say, okay, I felt safe consistently in this amount of time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I began to have to realize I had to make intentional time for myself to feel safe, to feel connection to my body, to recognize where my nervous system state was, to see where just having that awareness alone was huge for me. And it required me to slow down. It required me to start to like quiet my mind, like finding slow things to connect to my body. I started doing Qigong and yoga and meditation. Transcendental meditation was like one of my biggest lifesavers. I never would have thought. I used to be the person that said, I can't meditate. There's no way. Like my brain is going 1,000 miles per hour. I can never do this. And then I realized I just had to practice it. I had to practice it more and more and more. And I still have to continue to do that because it's not something you ever stop doing. Your practice, it has to remain for the rest of your life because we're kind of always on this healing journey.
Yeah, a lot of people will ask me, where are you at on your healing journey? And I say, I'm in the middle of it. And in 10 years, I'll probably be in the middle of it. It's, an exploration.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. I feel like it's like you're uncovering each layer by layer. And some of the layers are not as heavy as the other layers, I feel. And some of them are a little bit more easier for you to recognize and be like, oh my gosh, I finally get it now. And doesn't have to be so difficult. And I can kind of move on to the next thing. And you can kind of laugh at yourself a little bit. Because I think the journey is also laughing and finding the fun in it. Because if we're always in the energy of this is so hard, this is so difficult, and we carry that story, well, it's going to always feel like it's so hard and it's so difficult. So that's also a practice I tried to do as well is, okay, well, what's the story I'm telling myself? Like, how can I switch my perspective a little bit so that it doesn't have to feel so yucky all the time or feel so heavy all the time? And it's really in the energy of what we say to ourselves, and we think thoughts, the same thoughts every day. And so if we start to become aware of those, we'll start to see that we tell ourselves the same things over and over and over again. And it's good to know what those are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you decide that you wanted to start working with women who have been in your situation in the past or are currently going through it?
Yeah. Well, it was really when I was in traditional talk therapy and I was still in the beauty industry at the time and I was getting really stuck. Like she was giving me some really good tools to try, but she kept telling me to be present. And I would like try to make her explain that concept to me and she would try to explain and my brain and body could not like even understand what she was trying to say. So I felt a big disconnect from the traditional talk therapy method when she kept telling me to do something that I had never experienced before. And so I was eventually led to RCT, which is what I do today, rapid transformational therapy. It's a type of hypnosis that accesses that subconscious part of the brain, and that really helped me with my complex PTSD. It learned to help me be more present, to be able to process, actually to feel safe to process emotions and all of these things. And when I discovered this, I said, this is my path. This is how I'm meant to help people because I've walked it. And a lot of therapy, therapists in this world haven't walked the path of leaving a high control religion or a cult.
Hmm.
A lot of them haven't walked the path of being in a very abusive relationship. Some have, but a lot of them can't resonate with it. They've just learned from a book, and a book doesn't teach life experience. A book doesn't teach the things, that empathy does, and being able to witness somebody in their pain because you know the exact pain they've been through. And I said, I've got to do this. And that's when I went back to school. And I've been on that journey ever since, just continuing my education to really be able to embody who I want to be in this life, and to help the women and men, and to help men as well, to help them, access their authentic self.
Wow. I love the modalities that they have now.
Yes, they're good.
Back when I was younger and in therapy, I wasn't introduced to all these different great modalities. And it was when I had my right now moment and knew I had to put together a team that I was looking for an individual therapist, and a social worker I knew introduced me to my current therapist, and she's much younger than I am. And well, I mean, she's much younger. And at first I was like, what is this young girl going to be able to help me with?
Yeah.
But I met her and I realized that younger therapists have learned these new modalities that have helped with complex PTSD and with anxiety and stress. And so it opened up a whole new world for me about, the different modalities that we have for PTSD. Can you tell me
Yeah.
a little bit more about the rapid transformative therapy?
For sure, yeah. So it's hypnotherapy mixed with cognitive behavioral therapy, psychotherapy, and NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. And so, for anybody who doesn't understand what that is, it's really just helping you to understand how your brain operates. I really like to teach people the neuroscience behind their brain, and how, there is plasticity, and, you're able to kind of mold and rewire the brain, because you have power over your mind. You just don't realize it, because these past events and these past parts of you are really operating you. And you don't know that either until you kind of go into this healing journey. But I want people to be able to empower themselves. So I want to give them the guides and the tools to be able to say, oh, okay, this makes so much sense.
Mhm.
Now I can understand myself a little bit more, because we're not like, when we've had these experiences, we can feel broken, but I always tell people we're not broken. We just have lost parts of ourselves, and we've got to access them again, and we've got to connect with them again, so that we can feel more integrated, so we can feel more whole. Because these experiences, they kind of broke off pieces of us, right? Every time that something happened, and then we created a belief system from it. And, or, if it was, someone made us feel like we were not enough, all of a sudden we believe that we're not enough. And then we're starting to look for the validation or the confirmation that we're not enough. And because that's what our brain does. And just learning these things and these tools in itself is really, really helpful. But I always tell people this is not just the only modality. When I went on my search for my help, I tried multiple modalities. There is no just one ticket to freedom. There is, think of this as you need to access all parts of self, and you cannot only do it from the brain. You have to also do it from the limbic system and that nervous system, and really be able to access this mind-body connection. It's a holistic approach, mind, body, spirit. You have to be able to heal all parts of you. And I feel like the nervous system really takes a beating when we've been in toxic environments. And we don't realize that our nervous system, it doesn't know what's really going on, because it's also experienced this thing so many times. It's been rewired for protection.
Mhm.
Instead of like ability to be safe and adaptability and flexibility, all of a sudden we're very rigid, and we're very like tense, and we're very anxious, and we're very stressed, and we're very overwhelmed. Well, it's because all of these experiences have made us feel this way. And now our nervous system says, I guess we're supposed to operate from this way. So now that's the way we're going to operate. And that's not what we want. We want to
Yeah.
change it. We want to make our nervous system realize, well, whoa, wait a second. We're not still in that abusive relationship. We're not still in that abusive religion. Like we're safe, and we have more choice and more freedom, and kind of allowing yourself to be able to access that. I've heard, for me, it was somatics. a lot of somatic work. There's a lot of somatic practitioners out there. I incorporate that into my own work with clients, but it's a really great way to begin to feel safe again.
Mm. Yeah, the hyper, like the hyper arousal, the hyper vigilance, all those kind of things. For people who are survivors, we're operating on a totally different stress level than the average person. And
Yes.
learning how to bring that down to you can't really call it norm, but to a lower level of stress and being able to operate every day without this hyper constantly around you.
Yeah, exactly. And it takes practice. Like I always tell everybody, it's not gonna be perfect. You're not gonna do it perfect the first day, the first week, the second week. It's gonna be a continual thing where you're gonna I still have to be present and be like, oh, what is coming up here for me right now? Like right before we got on this call, I was feeling a little overwhelmed. I just gotten off a call with my book editor, and I was like feeling a little overwhelmed about my book launch coming up. And I was like, you know what? I gotta sit down for 10 minutes before this podcast, and I need to do some overwhelm for somatic work. And that's what I did. I connected to my body. I did some breathing. I did some movement, and I came on here. I was more calm. I was more grounded. I was able to be more present. But if I would have came on here dysregulated, I probably would have not said any of this stuff and been just like trying to fumble around and figure it out.
So when you're working with survivors and working through the nervous system and using a more holistic approach, what are some of the things that you will do with, let's say, a new client?
Yeah, of course. So the first thing that I automatically always do is we create safety. So they will listen to a recording that talks about how safe they are now, how it's safe to feel emotions, how it's safe to express themselves, how it's safe to be seen and heard. And this really helps kind of prep the subconscious mind to be able to go into these hypnosis sessions and really access these memories and process them and be able to kind of really allow the memories to go. And so the mind actually knows they're in the past rather than they're happening right now, because the subconscious believes everything is happening right now. So until we kind of process these things that have kind of been adding up over the years, they're just going to kind of be stacked up there. And there's going to be this filing system, and it's going to be overloaded, and it's not going to be able to, and it's going to just feel like so overwhelming to even access this stuff. This is about getting rid of some of the baggage you've been carrying and being able to process that. So we first establish that. And then we're able to kind of go into the life events that are keeping people stuck, that they're struggling with, and then being able to integrate the findings, the learnings, the understandings that they kind of discover about what beliefs they are carrying, and which are usually these negative core beliefs, right? I'm not wanted, I'm not lovable, I'm not enough. There's so many, I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving. I always do everything wrong. It's my fault. All of these really main core beliefs that each and every one of us carry. We all have a few. And to be able to start that process of rewiring the mind for what they want to create, who they want to be, because we ultimately create our reality by our belief system and what we want to believe. And this is about instilling and imprinting on the subconscious how we actually want to feel. Because this is what gives us the power to take over, the true power over our lives and not let these stories still run the show.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's empowering. Yeah.
Yes, it's very empowering. And that's really ultimately what I want to do, because a lot of us that have had trauma, we felt very powerless. We
Yes.
felt like we felt like we never had a choice. And we just wanted to feel like we could make our own choices when we were younger. And in these sessions, we can access the inner child that's a part of our psyche. And the inner child has stories. And sometimes she has secrets to tell you too. That memories that have been blocked, that have been repressed, that you didn't even know existed.
Mm.
And these may be the root cause of your entire struggle. And I know that was really my experience. I had, the finding access to my inner child really helped me heal on a deeper level, because she had things she needed to tell me, why I struggled with body shame and body dysmorphia and not loving myself. And I think that's really the ultimate journey here, is how much can you love yourself? There's an infinite amount of love for you in this lifetime. And it's all about the journey of learning how to love you, all of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing the way that our brains protect ourselves,
Mm.
and that it's hard to access those things that our subconscious want to just push away. And our subconscious, the parts of us that are trying to keep us safe sometimes don't want to share those, right?
Yes, exactly. Well, because it doesn't think that you can handle it. It might not feel like you're ready until you really incorporate safety into your life, until you like heal more of the nervous system so that you can access more of your truth. Things that, need to be processed, to be understood, to be healed. And that was really my own experience. My brain did protect me. And I think, it did a beautiful service to me because I wouldn't have been able to handle the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have
Yeah.
until much later. And I didn't know until I was, on my healing journey. And it felt like another shattering of sorts of my identity,
Yeah.
of pain and suffering. But it was also just another part of my awakening process. And, there's a gift in this hero's journey. If anybody's familiar with, Joseph Campbell and the hero with 1,000 faces, it's this healing journey is that. It is the hero's journey of recognizing, things are going to surface. You're going to have wounds. You're going to have triggers. And instead of suppressing and numbing or distracting, you're supposed to discover what the heck they're here for and why they're bothering you and what they've come to show you, because our emotions are our guides. They are our greatest teachers. And when we can learn that concept and we can trust it, that's when we can really become more of a rebirthing process and a transformation process to bring in what we actually want to do and not let the subconscious kind of rule. We'll have more access to that consciousness so that we can kind of connect our two worlds of, okay, well, how do we want our life to look? What do we want to believe about ourselves? And that's how we get to access what we're wanting to create.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
You.
So you've written a few books?
Yes, I have the one children's book. It's called The Grief Monster. That's
Ooh.
already out. That's on Amazon right now.
Oh.
That was really inspired by my children's loss of their father, like I spoke about earlier. It's the cutest little grief monster. You'll want one of him. He's just adorable. But it's about a little boy that loses his dad, and he doesn't know what to do with his grief. And this grief monster comes around to really help him see that he has to actually process his grief, and it's safe to process his grief and to be with his feelings and ask for support and ask for help. And I found that in the children's world, there was not a lot of books to help kids really process their grief. A lot of them have like stories or like fables to it, but it's not like really talking about the real thing, the real pain, the real source of the complication. And so I found that this needed to be spoken about and put it into this book. So that's my first creation, and my next creation is going to be out here on March 25th, 2025. And it's going to be launched. I'm very excited. We are going to be doing a digital launch first, and then we'll be doing a paperback. But the digital launch day is going to be $2.99. So if anybody wants to support, that's Shattered, Broken, and Beautiful, and it's called Losing My Religion to Find My True Faith.
Oh,
so
great title.
It's about my thank you. Yeah, it's about my experience of really shattering my identity and having to shatter who I was to become more of who I was really meant to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. I can't wait to read it. That's going to be amazing. And the grief monster, it's so in line with I created a monster doll, a pull apart monster doll. Yeah. To help kids with their big feelings, their frustrations, their emotions. And I do a Moody story time. It's named My Moody Monster. And so the short name Moody. So we do Moody story time, and I'm going to need to get that grief monster into Moody story time.
Oh, I love it. I need to see this monster. Yeah, we'll have to exchange. That is so, so cool. Oh, you have him right here.
That's Moody.
That is beautiful.
Thank you.
Is like the emotional intelligence help. I wasn't taught emotional intelligence. Honestly, a lot of us weren't, because it's a generational thing. We're just now learning. We are just now learning that we need to teach our kids emotional intelligence, and we had to learn it as an adult.
Right.
Right?
Well, that's I created Moody out of my own frustrations with my PTSD. And when I realized that this could be a good communication tool for parents to their children, especially because, like you said, I was never taught, that I could show my emotions. I was told not to be an angry girl or don't make Nana uncomfortable with your sadness, those type of things. So when there's this tool that parents can also incorporate into teaching their kids some coping skills that we all need, they're going to build their own coping skills toolbox, right?
Yes, I love that. Yeah, that's a beautiful gift you're giving children. Thank you for
Thank
doing
you. And you too. I can't wait to read this book. I can't wait for Moody and I to read the book.
that. Yes, yeah, I'm excited for sure. I will send you the link, and that way you can have it in the show notes too for anybody that's interested.
Perfect. Yes. So the book is coming out. I'm sorry, say it again. When is the book coming
March
out?
25th, 2025.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
So where can we find you?
So you're going to be able to find the book launch on Amazon, but you can find me at lifecoachinggoddess.com. That's my website. And then I'm on all the social media under Life Coaching Goddess or Brooke Deanne. And you can be able to find me there and come follow me, come into my world. And, if it resonates with you, don't hesitate to reach out and ask your questions.
Wonderful. Oh, Brooke, thank you so much for coming on the show. This conversation was like magical.
Oh, thank you. Agreed. I appreciate you hosting this and allowing me to have the space.
Yes, thank you. Brooke's story is incredible. She overcame abuses in her life and is now helping others to walk through their own healing journey. I can't wait to get the Grief Monster for Moody Storytime, so look out for that on the My Moody Monster YouTube page. And I'm also so excited for Brooke's new book. I will have all the info in the show notes, so don't forget to check them out. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the podcast. This show is produced by Phoenix Freed LLC, and I'm your producer, Jen Ginty. We hope you found today's conversation insightful and inspiring. If you have a story of your own about when a not yet moment became a right now, we encourage you to reach out and share it. You can find more information about being a guest on our show at whennotYetBecomesRightNow.com. Remember, you are not alone on your journey. Whether it's a journey of healing, growth, or transformation, every story matters. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time with another inspiring episode.